Welcome to this episode of Hampton Roads Business Live. Today my special guest is Wayne Skinner from Outreach for Christ, a organization based in Virginia Beach, correct?
Mm-hmm, correct.
All right, welcome Wayne. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Well, that's good. That's good to hear. Tell us about your organization. Let's start off with an overview of what is Outreach for Christ.
Well, first of all, some people mistaken us for a social ministry, and we're not. We're an evangelism ministry. And everything we do is based on getting people to hear the gospel of Jesus Christ and coming to know the Lord and making that their choice. And that's how we do everything.
Okay, can you tell us how did the ministry start?
Well, it started with me on Sunset Strip back in the 60s.
Wow, that far back.
That far back.
Okay.
And then when the Navy transferred me out here, I didn't know anything else to do but go out on the streets and minister like I did out there. And then the Navy transferred me, not transferred me, but it shipped me here and there with my skill as a television specialist. So I was in different cities and on the streets in San Francisco, Chicago, and different places and New Orleans where I had a chance to minister and share the gospel, and I've just been doing it ever since.
Well, what inspired you to start doing this? I mean, it was an inspiration to...
No, what happened was I was looking for answers. I saw some people that were really so tuned into God that every time they opened their mouth, people wanted to get saved. And I wanted that. And so I started seeking the book of Acts, and my youth and my church was working with me on it. And they said, well, let's have a revival. And so we had a revival. Well, that revival exploded.
And when was this?
This was in Chula Vista, California, where I was stationed at the time. I was a youth director of a church. And they exploded, and we had so many hundreds of people get saved over that week that it blew me away. And so the evangelist said after the revival was over, he said, well, Mr. Skinner, he said, why don't you just keep this going? I said, well, I can't. I said, well, why not? I said, well, first of all, I've been divorced and remarried. And in my religion, that doesn't make you anything more than a janitor. He says, well, God's forgiven you. You can get past that. So I gave that up to the Lord. And then he said, got anything else? I said, yeah, I got a family. He said, well, what about your family? I said, well, I got a wife and a baby and another one on the way, and I got to take care of them and look after things. He said, well, what did Abraham do with Isaac? Put him on an altar, you know? So I put my family on the altar. So I was expecting God to take me to a mission field and leave my family behind, you know? And then what? So he said, what's the third thing? I said, well, my father used to do street ministries back when I was a kid in these little towns in Nebraska. And he'd put my brother on one corner and me on another with what gospel tracts we could get our hands on. And I said, if I ever grew up and be an adult, I'd never do that again. But guess what I've been doing ever since?
I was going to say, isn't that what you've been doing ever since?
since this happened anyway. So I sold it all out to God. And then the Navy transferred me out here to Virginia Beach. And I've been... I didn't know anything else to do but just go out on the streets and do it all over again.
Okay, well, you seem to be pretty good at it.
Well, God's good at it, and He uses me.
Obviously, you love what you do, and you get a lot of enjoyment. And
absolutely.
Well, that's good. So I assume, well, I'm not going to assume anything. You help all kinds of people from every walk of life. Is
just
that correct?
About, yes.
Okay. All right, and you do this, you have several different ministries. It's not just one thing that you do. It's just not on the streets, for instance, doing that. But you do other ministries that I'm aware of. Can you tell us the different ministries that you do? Well, then we can talk about different ones.
For the people on the streets, they kept going to jail. So I kept going to the jail to see them. And the sheriff there was a committed Christian himself. And he says, I'm not taking these people out to see you anymore. You're going in. So we wound up in jail ministries, and we've been doing jail ministries ever since. And
now, is that well, let's just take one at a time, okay, jail ministries. So is that one that you do every week?
Yes.
Okay.
And sometimes several times a week.
Is that just in Virginia Beach?
No. We have done most of the state prisons in the state of Virginia off and on over the years. We do Virginia Beach Jail, Norfolk Jail, and Indian Creek Prison regularly. And then we do others, and some of my people go get involved with other evangelism outreaches in other prisons throughout the year. Not so much me anymore, because I'm getting old enough I can't handle all that travel and stuff.
Right.
But,
and you found the response to be good
we
in prisons.
we see it fantastic, and of course what was built out of all this was a prayer ministry, and we spend most of our time in prayer and in building a prayer letter. These inmates fill out prayer slips with all their families, names and addresses and all this stuff, and we minister to the inmates' families through the prayer ministry, and then some of them call us and we minister to them regularly over the phone, and some of them come in to see us and do whatever. So the prayer ministry stretches out from the jail to all the families of the inmates sometime or another, and we ministered through that as well.
And you've seen a real, you've seen examples of a turnaround with these inmates and things.
Our records show that that only about 20% of the people we minister to ever go back to jail.
That's pretty good, because that's not that's significantly lower than
the regular average is about 70 to 80%.
Wow, wow, that is a huge difference. Okay, and then I know that related to the jail ministry is a toy ministry.
Right.
And can you tell us about the toy ministry?
Well, how that got started was in the Virginia Beach jail on Christmas Day. The guys were wild, and they had to call all the deputies in every Christmas Day. And so we asked the inmates, said, "Why are you acting this way?" I said, "Well, what can we do? We can't do anything for our families." So that's when my wife stepped up to the plate and said, "I'll take care of that." And so she started providing Christmas for all the inmates' children every Christmas.
Huge undertaking.
It's a huge undertaking. We don't do just one toy like some ministries do. We do a complete Christmas for every inmate in the name of the father or mother who's in jail. And so when we take the toys to the house, we have people that deliver them to the homes, and they take them up and they say, "These are from your mom or dad," and the kids go crazy, crazy. And then on top of that, whoever delivers the toys shares their faith with the guardian. And so we started providing the guardians with a gift as well, and we keep ministering to those families throughout the year through the prayer letter and whatever. And so we get a lot of response from the families for other things, like we keep clothing that people donate to us. We get household goods. We get furniture, appliances, and stuff like that, and we help all the families of the inmates with all that kind of stuff as needed, because they're not there to do it themselves.
Right. And that has made a difference on Christmas, right? As far as
yeah, not only Christmas, but all year long.
Right, but I mean, as far as the inmates acting up.
Yeah, well, they settle down. We don't have any trouble with them anymore on Christmas Day.
That's cool. So I guess the jail staff is thankful to see you in there doing your thing.
They don't give us any trouble going in and getting the applications all filled out and taken care of.
Yeah.
No,
well,
sir.
I imagine it's a win-win.
But unfortunately, we're only big enough to do it for the Virginia Beach jail. We can't do it for the other places.
That was my next question, is do you do that for Norfolk?
No, I wish we could. Yeah. We're just not big enough to do that.
Okay, all right. And well, we're going to talk about how we can help make you bigger here in a little bit. But there's other ministry that you work on too. What is that?
We have a nursing home ministry.
Okay.
And we go in every Sunday night and minister to the patients in there and give a service. And then we go from room to room and minister to them personally in their beds and whatever we do. And we do that at one nursing home, which is Bay Point in Virginia Beach. Okay,
and I'm looking on here. I want to talk more about the street ministry here in a second. The nursing home ministry is something that I understand a little bit about that, in that my wife does not what you're doing exactly, but she visits several nursing homes and visits people who nobody goes to see and that sort of thing. So I know it's kind of like a calling. So I guess you have a calling to do these ministries.
Well, what happened there was that one of the nurses in my church, a head nurse, who came to me and says, "Is there anything you can do about this? We just can't get churches to come in and do church services." And so that's when we picked it up and said, "Okay, outreach we'll do that."
Right.
And so now we're there every Sunday night with a church service, and then we come in an hour or two early and go from room to room. And sometimes I'm on call, I'm considered the chaplain there, so I'm on call 7/24 if there's a family that really needs a chaplain, and I can come in and minister to the family, and we do minister to the families as well that are in there visiting well, I usually call them inmates, but they're not. They're patients. But anyway, do whatever we can.
I think you've been hanging around the jail too long.
Yeah. Yeah.
But okay, on the street ministry, this is something that's done late at night.
Yes.
Yeah, and do you find that to be dangerous?
Yes.
Okay. I wasn't expecting that answer, but okay.
Well,
I would assume it kind of would be.
Well, for a couple of reasons. I minister to a lot of people out there, and a lot of them belong to cult groups and other groups, and if a person wants to get out of that group, we tell them if they're ready to walk away with us with what they got in their pocket, we'll get them to somewhere where they can get help. And so we do. We got other ministries across the United States that we call and we say, can you take this person? We'll ship them to you, put them on a bus, and ship them to them. And because of that, yes, I've had contracts on my life.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, didn't know that.
In fact, one guy that got saved later was with one of the cult groups. He said, to make the priesthood, my job was to go out and find you with a gun on the street and shoot you. But he said, I went out there several times and couldn't find you. And then he said, then he got into a church and got saved. And he was telling this to my wife later, which blew her away. Wow. And then other groups that the police have called us and said, hey, you need to watch yourself out on the streets because you got a contract running out there for you.
Really?
Then we got 2 or 3 people in prison that
That's a shame.
We got 2 or 3 people in prison where we've helped their families for one reason or another, and they lost their families out of the deal. But we just kind of said, hey, family, you got to do what you got to do for your family, you know. So they're out to get us if they ever get out of prison.
Well, that's a shame, but I guess there's always an up and a downside of things. So.
But it's God's thing, and I belong to God, so He's responsible.
Okay. So you're based in Virginia Beach, but you work throughout the community. Can you tell us how the community can help you?
Well, first of all, we connect with churches, and we want to support churches. We're not a parachurch ministry. We're an extension of the church. And those churches that have bonded with us, we're an extension of the church. They send people out that they want them to do mission work or do whatever. They can come and they can do that with us. They either go on the streets, and some of them can get cleared to even go in the jails or prisons or whatever. But a lot of them can just come and work on toys. And then on top of that, we have high school kids that need to do community service as part of their schooling. They can come and get their community service with us. Some of them come out of the courts and have to do community service, and we can take care of that too. And so we use people like that as well. But we want to do what the church cannot do, because the church has struggles going out on the streets and doing it out there as a church. Because they kind of reject, the people on the streets kind of reject you if you say, well, I'm from so-and-so church, you know. But if you're from Outreach for Christ, they said, well, what church are you with? I said, we're not here with a church, we're here with Jesus Christ. And we're here to share the Lord Jesus Christ with you. Now, we can point you to a church and get you involved if you're ready to get connected, you know. And so we can do some things like that the church can't do, the same way as in the jail. They don't want the church itself in the jail. Because they want to be more, they want to control it a little more, and they can work with Outreach for Christ and tell us exactly what they want. And
so it doesn't matter which denomination of a church it is. You work with any church as far as them working with you. And how about donations? If someone's looking at this and say, boy, that sounds like a great thing, that they could probably use some financial support or volunteer support for, like you mentioned, fixing toys or working with toys. I know that you actually do repair stuff and clean up stuff, and you clothes and all kinds of stuff. So talk about that, of how they could help, whether it's volunteer or money.
Well, financially, we're tax exempt, so we can give them a tax exempt receipt for their donation. A lot of people don't want it, but we recognize their donation anyway. And we keep a record of everything. We have a computer system that records everybody that volunteers, everybody that we've ministered to, everybody that's made a commitment to Jesus Christ in one way, shape, form, or another. We keep all of that on record so that we can know what we're doing accurately and what we need to drop if we're not being good at it. And so we keep all that, and so we use people even to do data entry in the computers for us and stuff like that. And that stuff is used then to minister to people, like if a homeless, and we do a lot of homeless people too. And the homeless people come in and want clothing or a bicycle or this or that, or maybe a bus pass, and we keep a few of those around if we got extra money. And so we give them a bicycle and a bus pass, tell them to go out and find a job, you know, and tell them where to go look and stuff like that, you know. But that's the same. We do the same thing with inmates when they come out of jail. Because they come out of jail, they don't usually have clothes or anything, and so we have to give them clothing, a bus pass, and a bicycle so they can go get around and go find a job. And then on top of everything else, we have a lot of inmates that come out that have been extradited here from somewhere else. Guess what? The state doesn't extradite them back.
Right.
So we have to ship them back by bus back to where they came from. And we do that too. And occasionally, not very often, but occasionally we have to keep a person overnight till we can get them on the bus the next day or do whatever. But we have connections with all the organizations that deal with homeless people, especially those coming out of jail. And we have one man in particular that he just runs them around all the time and tries to get them settled in so they can have a place to sleep and things to get done, get their lives back together.
Well, certainly a big asset to the community, and I don't think many people know about you, unfortunately.
Well, we try to keep it down for several reasons, but the main reason is if we were to really advertise it very heavily, we'd get swamped. And we don't have that ability to handle that. And so we try to be a little careful about that because even the homeless people got the word out there not too long ago, and we were being inundated with homeless people and we feed them a meal, do whatever we got to do, you know, but it's the best we can do. All
right. Well, hopefully we can help expose the need for volunteers and for donations. And is there anything else that you'd like to add to this? Well, the basic thing is that all this is tied together with the prayer ministry. I got to emphasize that again. If we didn't have the prayer ministry, none of this stuff would probably exist today. But we meet just before I came here this morning, we had prayer time and devotional time and we have a prayer letter that's got hundreds of names on it, and we pray for them every day and do that, and then spend some time in the Word of God for ourselves and that sort of thing. But that's the key issue of our ministry, is that. Okay, well, it's been a pleasure having you in here today to talk with us. And if you have some time, would like to donate some time for the toy ministry or any of the other ministries that he spoke about, you can do that. And the information for contact information for Outreach of Christ is at the bottom of this page. And I'm sure they'd love to hear from you if you want to contribute financially or as a volunteer. Thank you for coming in, Wayne. It's my privilege. Okay, thanks.